Bukowski?
Thank you. I would like to just take a step back and look more at a procedural issue, because I think Mr. Carson made a pretty bold statement when he said that the submissions that he put to the, I'm assuming to Mr. DeGroot, he gets the zoning petitions, correct? Or the clerk does, I'm sorry, the clerk does. They were somehow filtered before they got to the board or the planning commission. I just want to put that to bed as one way or the other to make sure that all of that information that you submitted came to the planning commission and to the board. And he's shaking his head no, and I don't know who else to look at other than Mr. Wu.
I can address some of that. It's my understanding that Mr. Plato removed some information related to the private arbitration on the basis that it is relevant to this parcel, does not pertain to this parcel in any way. And that material was not provided to the board or the planning commission.
I don't believe that Mr. Plato removed the material for the township board. I believe it was done by Mrs. Rosati. I believe Mr. Plato may have removed the material for the township planning commission. The email I got from Mrs. Rosati stated that they had removed the material because of a, quote, private arbitration. My response was, I understood the arbitration was between the Salem Township, which is run by this board, and us. I don't see it as private to the board members. And I couldn't understand why the board members couldn't see the material that we've submitted. But that's up to the board members and their council as to how the board can run the township without seeing the material.
Well, just to clarify, it's my understanding that the certain documents related to the arbitration, which is still pending, and a private arbitration pursuant to the development agreements entered into by the parties, was removed as irrelevant because it does not pertain to the straight rezoning of this subject parcel. That's the understanding I have.
I responded to Ms. Rosati. What was removed, I've been told, related to the Yucca agreement, which would provide wastewater treatment, and the briefing may have been removed, and the reason why the briefing is submitted was removed. We thought it was relevant because we were concerned that we might come before the board, and the board might take the position of, we don't understand why you're not submitting a PUD. And the PUD, as everybody knows, requires an agreement or a likelihood of an agreement to be reached. In the history of the parties and their ability to, one, reach an agreement, and two, to follow through on an agreement, we think is relevant. In fact, earlier in this, I don't want to belabor the record, earlier in this discussion, I stated that I didn't believe that it was, or I'm prepared to address the issue of why we don't think it's reasonably likely for us to be required to pursue a PUD when we can't get into other agreements in any kind of reasonable time frame, and when we have an agreement, we end up not having the agreements followed. But that's why we thought that history, and it was only going to the board or the designated representatives of the township, would be insightful to the township board members. I don't know whether they've seen these briefs in the past at all, in connection with the proceeding that they have to make votes in.
Well, and I think to address Trustee Bukowski's question, I think, and I don't know the answer to this question, but it would be my understanding that as to the arbitration materials and the agreements related to the development agreements for the other two parcels, the full board, which is your body tonight, as opposed to the planning commission, has been advised and had available and access to those documents throughout that process, as they are required to stay abreast of that in order to make decisions regarding that arbitration.
my understanding is they have not seen those materials.
Mr. Supervisor, may I?
Yes.
When Mr. Carson's package came, is that on Thursday? I was
Yes.
instructed by Carol Rosati to remove documents. I talked to the clerk. I told him that I had done that and that he had access to it. And if he wanted to see them or disseminate them to the board, it was his responsibility to contact Carol Rosati. So they are, that's what I mean.
If I could just follow up, I didn't hear you say, you were talking about last Thursday.
You know, the big package.
Right,
Documents.
but I think you had mentioned the initial submittal. No, just this last?
No,
submittal?
we had submitted them, these materials also to the planning commission, which would have flowed to you.
Right,
But we understand that we understood that that material was removed from the planning commission. So after the planning commission adopted its ordinance and submitted the material, we were concerned that you never got the full package that we tried to submit to the planning commission. So we submitted all that material. In fact, what are they, 12 copies or something like that?
Yeah.
And assumed that because they were going to the board, and that the board runs the township, everybody else works for you, I mean, the staff, the attorneys, and all that other stuff, that you would see this material, which we thought was relevant. My understanding now is that neither the planning commission nor the board has seen it.
That's not true. There's 3 board members that have seen it. How you're...
and I would have to disagree with Mr. Wilhelm that your statement that the board has seen all the documentation.
I don't know whether you have or not.
Okay,
Clearly, some material was withheld and removed from the submission of May 3. It's very clear. Whether you have seen that material in another form or at another time, I don't know. I don't know what you've seen. I can't. It wasn't my intent to say whether you had. I would imagine you've been brought up to speed and advised about the status of the arbitration and the development agreements that are the subject of the arbitration, so. Maybe it's just
And again, I followed the
negotiation.
instruction of the lawyer, and I made the clerk aware of what was done.